one of the biggest British boxing fights in history is taking place on a Saturday. It's Chris Eubank Jr. taking on Conor Benn, the son of Nigel Benn, and this is a Benn-Eubank rivalry renewed. As we saw back in 1990, it was Eubank-Benn 1. Chris Eubank Sr. knocked out Nigel Benn late in that fight. And then the rematch 3 years later in 1993 saw a split decision draw. But now, all these years later, Chris Eubank Jr. is taking on Conor Benn after they were originally supposed to fight back in 2022 before Conor Benn tested positive for some substances. So and through the years and since 2022 and the past couple years, this fight has been talked about so many times, and it seemed like it wasn't going to happen, but it finally has, and it seems like the rivalry has heated up more than ever. And Chris Eubank Jr. is the favorite at -175. Conor Benn's the underdog at +140. And that, a big reason to do with that is because Chris Eubank Jr. is the bigger fighter. He is a natural middleweight. And although he did miss the middleweight limit, he weighed in at 160.2, 160 limit that was on Friday. He was fined he was fined $500,000. And although that could be concerning, I still think with his 3-inch reach advantage, or 3-inch height advantage and 4-inch reach advantage, I just think he is a bigger fighter, and I think it's going to be too much for Conor Benn to overcome. Although he is a warrior, he is the younger fighter. He's 28 years old, and Chris Eubank Jr. is 35 now. This is, I think, the turning point for Chris Eubank in his career. He's hinted at retirement throughout the past couple years, and I think if he doesn't get the job done here against Conor Benn, I think this could be his last fight, although it seems like a 2-fight deal was signed. So it seems like whoever wins this, we will hopefully see Eubank Jr. Benn 2 in the next couple of months. But in this fight, it's just great that they're finally fighting. They're fighting at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. It sold out in minutes. Over 60,000 will be there. And this is one of the biggest fights in British boxing history, like I said, and one of the biggest in the last 10 plus years. The third fight ever that will take place at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. The last one was Tyson Fury versus Derek Chisora a couple years ago. And in this fight, Eubank does have the more experience as he is the older fighter. He's 34-3, and since he lost to Liam Smith a couple years ago, he's rattled off 2 knockout victories in the last year. But now he's facing Conor Benn, who, unlike Chris Eubank, is undefeated at 23-0 with 14 knockouts. And his last win came a couple months ago when he beat Peter Dobson, and he stayed in the win column. But this fight, like I said, I think that Benn might be the all-around better boxer. But considering, like I said, the weight moving up and Chris Eubank being the more powerful puncher. I mean, Chris Eubank has some of the best power ability in boxing, and especially in the middleweight division. I mean, he has 25 knockouts in his career, and I just think that's the difference. I think Chris Eubank's going to win this fight, and I think that the weight, there's been a lot of talk about that, and Chris Eubank says that Matchroom and Eddie Hearn and Conor Benn are kind of, depleting his body, as he can't weigh more than 170 pounds on the fight day, which I do agree with that. I think it's terrible that there is a rehydration clause. I think Chris Eubank at this weight is just a better boxer, so I expect him to get the job done. It's a shame that he hasn't amended things with his dad, Chris Eubank Sr., as he won't be in his corner, as Nigel Benn will be in Conor Benn's corner. But overall, this should be fantastic boxing in the UK. It's Chris Eubank Jr. It's Conor Benn. I got Eubank Jr., but who do you guys think will win this massive boxing fight? Comment down below, hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you next time.